G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers Survival. I'm back in my little cart because, as you can see in front of me, it's changed a little bit. What I've got is a script that was written specifically for this little vehicle so that it could be controlled with the W, A, S and D keys directly. The cool thing about this is that you don't even need a remote control block, which means as I hop in and out of the seat, I need to do nothing and I can get going straight away, which is kind of awesome. The other really nice thing about it is because I've got better control over it and I'm not having to break my brain while trying to think of which buttons I have to press, I can actually control this thing well enough to get through the door into the medical bay. I think. I really hope. Wait, have I still got the flag on here? I need to get rid of the flag. Bye flag, sorry. You just will make this a nightmare. That is really dangerous to do without a HUD. So today we're going to be building the command center. And at some point during today, the opening time lapse will start to... Oh, rats, I need to see the wheels. Couldn't see enough. At some point today, the opening time lapse will start to make sense. My plan with the command center is to have something that's got a bit of a multi-level thing going on, with hopefully the ability to have the control stations somewhat dropped down even within their level, or at least make them something a little more complex. But I'm in two minds on that because I've currently got a problem where every second or third time I try and do anything every second or third time I try and load this map, the game crashes to my desktop. Which is not ideal. And I'm starting to think it may have something to do with the excessive number of blocks I've got and the excessive number of subgrids I've got. So having more... Uh-oh, that was a bad idea. Oh, I've done it again. Shift K. Terminal. Doors. Industrial door offset. Open. Alright, let's get out of here. No, don't get caught. Good. I probably should have backed out when I didn't get straight through that on my way out. So I'm thinking something with two levels at the moment. The upper level is going to be stationed around a central display, for want of a better term. The central display is going to be surrounded by its own little bits of consoles down on the bottom level, as well as some facing outwards towards the wall, so that we can fit maybe 20, 25, probably 20-ish. I'm thinking that sort of number, 20-ish technicians working at their stations. But what we need to do first is extend the corridor beyond where the blast door is, because as it's currently arranged, that blast door, well, if we opened it up, you'd have free reign to go straight into the control center, which I feel like I should have just that little bit of extra delay or extra protection before you can get in. And that'll mainly be provided by doors and some stairs to lead us up to the upper level, where we'll have more control stations, and possibly like a little boardroom type setup. This is what I was thinking. And need to turn the rotors off to extend the battery life. So, let's open this up. There we go. Now we can start our drill. Oh, dampeners on would make that a lot safer. We can start drilling, and I'm thinking of going about 8 blocks, I think will work best, or should be enough to give me room to play with. So I can set up some stairs and then start setting up the control room. All right, so that should give us enough room to work with. If I want to put a little security office or some extra blast doors or something else in this corridor, I've got enough room now. That means we can move on to placing down some sort of stairwell to reach an upper level. One of the things I'm thinking of in terms of the shape of this command center is that it's going to be octagonal. And because of working with 45-degree armor pieces, that means that I'm probably going to have the floor level between each segment, between each the floor, the ceiling. Either way, the layer of blocks between the lower floor and the upper floor, so the floor for the upper level and the ceiling for the lower level, that's going to be a full block thick, and it's going to be made with armor blocks. And the reason for that is so that I can make this sort of shape, so that I can have a nice clean angle like that flowing into slopes and create the octagonal shape with that sort of design. If I made this with anything else, I wouldn't be able to have a nice 45-degree angle around there, and I think it would ruin the look and feel of the space that I'm trying to create. So that means that I would really prefer to have 2 blocks of space before we get up to that level. So the stairs are going to have to get all the way up to where this current ceiling is. And the reason I mention that is just to give us an idea of how we're going to arrange the stairs to do that. I'm keen in this instance to use the vanilla stairs, largely because they're a bit more, well, because I don't really want to have the grating, the see-through look. I want these to be solid. And what I'm thinking is we might be able to have them branch up each side like that. Then from there we can, I'm just going to put that in there now. Maybe. Yeah, maybe we can then go to stairs this way. Part of what I'm trying to do here is ensure that there's no direct line of sight from the corridor through to anything that goes on in the command center. It was mentioned to me that that might be a good idea in terms of a security function or security feature of how this is set up. And I kind of makes sense to me. And I couldn't think of a great way to do that sort of thing until I realized that I was going to make this multi-leveled and have the opportunity to use stairs in a doubling back sort of pattern like this. So then we would come out to a door here, and then we can mirror that on the other side. So we'll have a door that's in the center with the 2 matching, well, 2 mirrored stairwells going up. So we go up, around, and then we have to double back to go into the command center. Plenty of little corners to make it a bit more convoluted to get there. From a security point, seems to make sense, but from a usability standpoint is horrible. All sorts of horrible. In case you hadn't already picked up on it, a lot of my designs with this base are somewhat roleplay for the base, this base itself, but also tend to be designs that I might consider using on bases in other circumstances. So it wouldn't just be this specific base where I would think of building this style of command center. I may try and build something like this on a spaceship, something that can actually fly around. And I didn't want to put those there because I want to put armor blocks in there. This is going a lot further into the mountain than I had anticipated when I was just sketching this out in my head earlier. That should do. That'll be our entryway. So I'm going to weld up most of this stuff around here and maybe put in a few of these blocks as well, just for a little bit of detail before we figure out what on earth I'm actually going to do with this corridor. A few people suggested to me that I should do something like the Get Smart intro sequence, and I'm really tempted. And now that I've created a bit more space, I could potentially do that. In fact, let's just check. Do I have enough room on either side to do some side doors? Oh, I so could. I might. We'll come back to that. I may do that here, or I may just do that as an in a creative world for the fun of it. But it is something that I now really want to do, with all the doors slamming in from different directions, different styles, all that sort of stuff, so you can watch them all close in sequence, which would look pretty sweet with the turrets popping out at the end, and would work nicely with the delay now that I think about it. That bit of a delay with the airtight hangar doors would totally work if you saw, starting in the distance, doors slamming down, and then this final door drops down, and the turrets pop out. Giving myself more things to do. I don't need more things to do. I've got so much to do already. Oh boy. All right. Welding time. We've now got this big white wall, which will need to have something done with it to make it a little more interesting, but I'm kind of happy with how cramped and winding these little corridors are. I've always been a big fan of designs in my bases and in my ships where you have to kind of double back through spaces, and it feels like a place where you might be able to get lost. Another thing I wanted to point out that I did in here, which is something that I've always liked to do with the vanilla stairs, is using the, what's it called? The window 1x2 side left and right, so that you can get a barrier for side stairs with a doubling back like these have been arranged. So you've got a nice barrier, but it is also see-through. And I've obviously matched that on this side with the other mirrored piece of glass. So that all comes around to here, then we can go out and then we'll be on the upper level of the command center. And then the lower level will come through these corridors here, like that. So that one's pretty easy to navigate through. And now to lay out a bit of the design of the command center. First thing I'm going to do is give us some light. There we go, that's a bit better. So I think I should bring the floor out to at least there, but I might actually do the top floor first. The reason for that is since it's going to have the octagonal hole in the floor, it kind of dictates just where the center of the room will be based on how I shape that octagon. And what I'm thinking is something that's going to be 3 blocks to a side. So that would be like this. Then we'll start with an inverted corner. And even though these diagonals are longer, I'm still going to go with 3 on them as well, as I think 3 diagonals is probably going to look a bit nicer than if I just went with 2 and with the 3 straight sections. I had thought about going out to 5, but that makes a huge space. That's sort of almost as big as the Goose's parking area, so definitely more than is required for a human-only space. Reasonable for a space that's going to have vehicles, but not just people. Or at least not just people controlling stuff. So that's 1, 2, 3. Then we'll go on to our next bit. And that's the octagon complete. So that gives you a pretty rough idea about how big this space is. And that's only with 3 blocks to a side. So I could have gone very easily oversized if I'd gone with any more than that. But I feel like walking into this space, it will feel big, but not gigantic. And I did want it to feel a bit big, especially with what is going to fill the center. So now that we've got that layout done, we can get on to building what's going in the center, because that is the thing I am kind of most excited about, seeing how it ends up looking. So the center should be my layout 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it should be this block right here. I'm going to dig it down a little bit into the floor so that I've got a bit of space to work with, as I need to place a rotor down here. Now, what am I going to do with this hole? I kind of want this hole to be a little bit open, but to be surrounded by consoles. So maybe I will do a 3x3 space for it and then build some cult command consoles around it, because I think they will work best. Because I'm thinking what I'll try and do is do an entirely large grid build for this, see how good I can get it, and then if there are some little bits where a couple of finessing touches could be done with small grid that would add a lot and be worth doing, then I'll add those in after. As during all this drilling, I've been thinking about it, and I feel like that might be the best way to go about most of these designs. Try and do as much as I can with large grid. There are certain designs like the auditorium that just never were going to work with large grid, so I had to go small, but I feel like that should in some ways be avoided as much as I can manage. corner and say this one. Maybe both of those. So if we put that in the center of each segment, then put the smaller one off to each side. I'm gonna have our little corner pieces in. Looks all very square. So I think what we're going to need to do is put something on these corners, and I'm not really sure how best to do that. Though maybe the square doesn't look too bad in this octagonal room. Maybe I'll just leave it for now and get on to building the centerpiece. So the centerpiece, we need to come down a little ways because I want it to be recessed in the floor so you can't easily see what's happening here, because it is a bit silly what I'm about to do in terms of it doesn't really make sense, but it's all for the look of how things are going to work above. So we come down to there and then pop a rotor on here, and on top of that rotor I am going to place one of these. The idea that I had in mind and why I was working on that funny thing in the time lapse was that it's going to be the blueprint that I project. So that would be, I think I named it sphere-ish. Yeah, this one. So we now need to rotate this to the correct orientation. Nope. Yes, that's the way. Then horizontal, 0, vertical. Yeah. Lift that up a fair way. And then the real test is what happens and how this is going to look when I scale it up. So I want it to almost occupy the full width of this. How does that look? Oops, I'm not standing on the floor. So you can imagine with the... Oh, maybe I should have done that all in blue rather than done it fully coloured. It might have fitted in a bit more. I might need to repaint this whole thing so that it's all in shades of blue, and that'll fit in with all of the displays on these consoles. But also, I'm going to need this to be higher. It is not quite high enough, and that's at its maximum extension. So, scrap that. Let's bring it up a block. Yes! That's what I was looking for. Alright, let's just finish off this rotor so I can get it spinning, because I really want to show that off. Alrighty. Velocity. That's too high. Yeah, that's probably about right, actually. Yes! We have a spinning projected globe! That was the look I was hoping for. And when this is all finished, and if I recolor the whole sphere so that it's mainly in blues, but kind of subtly hinting at the colors of the desert and the mountains and the polar ice caps, oh, I think that'll look pretty awesome. Yes. I'm quite excited about this. I think this will be seriously cool. I mean, yes, if you get very close, you can tell that it's all armor blocks, but at this distance, I still think it looks pretty good. I might leave it colored until I've got the whole thing in, because it may not look quite so bad when all the consoles are done. So right now, this feels more like a museum piece than anything else. I'm so happy to be able to do something ridiculous like that so that I don't have to use LCDs to do it. I think that looks so much cooler. While I was working on the floor, I had another idea for how we could do this projector setup. And I'm somewhat tempted to do this. Rather than having all of these consoles around here, I might make separate little stations around the place with consoles and some LCDs and have it set up like this. So underneath we've still got our spinning projecting table, but then we've got this one static, so it looks like it's the projector of the spinning one, which I think is an illusion that holds together pretty well. I suppose you could possibly put a few more of them around here so it looked like a really large table. Or the other option, which I've seen used around the place with these desks, is to place a few of these desks around it with the corner ones as well. And then we've got a giant ball, but I feel like I would have to shrink the size of the planet to make that work, and might be more suitable for a small conference room type setup. But I wonder if I brought these consoles in, and where have I got them? And put them right up against this, whether they'd still look all right. They just do feel a little big. Although this floor space is now going to look really empty, and I'm going to have to figure out how to deal with that. But I kind of like the idea that there's not this big gaping hole in the center of the floor. At least this way, even though there's still these small panels around here, we've got it mostly concealed. And if you're looking up from the balcony above, yeah, I think that's a more believable thing than having the really, really large open space. Especially looking at it from up here. Being able to see the top of the projector table, I feel works quite well. I'm also really happy that the projection is persistent even through other objects. I was a bit worried that if I didn't have direct line of sight to the projector table that was generating the blueprint, that I wouldn't be able to see it. But I'm not sure really why I was worried about that, because projectors don't behave that way, and it's basically just a projector. So I shouldn't really have worried about that. Now I have to think about what on earth I'm going to do with this floor. Something I've really wanted to figure out, and that I haven't been able to get my head around, is how to use a desk like this and have a screen in front of it. Because I'd really like to have that style desk with some sort of interface. And I'm wondering if... yeah... I think you can kind of see what I'm getting at. So you have the desk and then you have the programmable block behind it. So yes, the keyboard's a little bit awkwardly positioned, but I might weld this up and see how it looks. I'm going to need to get a bunch of stuff and dump a lot of the stuff I've got. Go! Also, power. Alright, that should be everything I need, and... how does that look? I don't think that looks too bad. It is something it was bugging me that I couldn't really put an LCD or anything there. And then while I was doing this, I was just thinking about what blocks have some LCDs at around the right height. I don't think there's much else that really does. I suppose I could make some consoles as... oh, interesting thought I just had. I wonder if you could set up some console blocks with some blueprints that look like an interface. So you move the interface over to a chair that's attached to it. Could even hide the console block in behind a wall or something. That might be feasible. What else have we got here? The survival kit also has an LCD on it. There's a big downside to the survival kit though. Is, well, its LCD is kind of tiny by comparison, I think. Yeah. No, it's not. But it does have the big survival kit bit on it, which is, yeah. But that is an alternative if you wanted like a medical console, I guess. Hydrogen engine doesn't help us. Medical room doesn't help us. Assemblers don't. I kind of think it's just the survival kit and the programmable block that seem to have the LCDs at the right height for these chairs. It would be nice if we had something that was a similar block to, where is it? These ones from the Cult console set. Something with the LCDs that we can now display stuff on and have as active displays. I always felt that these looked much more like genuine cockpits, and I'd like to have something that looks more like a desk with a screen. And I feel like this is the closest I've come yet. So I might put a few banks of these around the outside so that people can work at those computers and those terminals, even though they look way retro 50s futuristic, which I guess isn't always a bad thing. But that's something that I kind of like. What else could I use to fill in the floor? I'll probably put in more little areas with the Cult consoles. Though the mixture of chairs is going to be a bit of a kind of thing. Might have to just do consoles without chairs. so that we only have the chairs from the DLC pack. And then I can probably put a few of these screens hanging down from the roof on both levels so that there's a bit more data around and stuff just hanging around the place. Oh no, why can't I? Why did it take me so long to notice that I couldn't see the projection? Maybe there is something wrong with that if I'm away. Is it visible now? No. You should be projecting. Blueprints. Sphere. That's not how you spell sphere. Oh no, it's... Oh, don't be like this. Alright, let's just see what those settings are, just so that I can quickly re-establish them if anything goes wonky. Scale of 0.07. So 7% scale, roll of 90, minus 50. Rebuild my floor. Can still see the projection. Alright, let's leave the room again. See if that was what broke it. We go as far as away as we can. Then I return. And please, please don't go away. It's gonna really suck if you do. Dang it! Okay. I'm gonna guess that one. Toggle block on off. That one. Toggle block on off. There we go. See if the... Nope. Aha! Okay. So what I should be able to do is set up a sensor somewhere in here so that once you get in the room, it will toggle that block on, and as you leave, it'll toggle it off so that this doesn't end up disappeared when you come back into the room, so that it will be on whenever anyone enters this room. Bit annoying that you have to do that, but at least a quick on-off does fix the problem. Unfortunately, there was meant to be a time lapse right there. However, I kind of messed up the second camera angle, so I wasn't able to use it. But here is the big reveal. And let's turn that on so we have the full effect. This is our command center. This is where we're going to have all of our consoles set up and all of our little people working in here, or well, really just me, but pretend little people working in here, so that we can command anything that's on the planet, apparently. I have set this room up a little bit lopsided, though it's relatively hard to tell. This wall up here is slightly closer than the one on the other side. If I think of a reason to have a room off the other side, I may balance that up. But the reason I had this one lopsided is I wanted to have two doors entering into a command meeting room area. So that'll be a large table in there, and I needed to leave enough space between these two doors that they didn't feel like they were right beside each other and completely unnecessary to have two of them. So that's why I did that. Huh. Oops. Huh. Oh, ow. Okay, don't do that again. So this is it. The remainder of the things that I'm going to do on this level of the base are a new entryway, which is going to be a more secure one, replacing the elevator with one that can go to 3 floors, so that's this floor, the hangar floor, and the station floor, and then doing some decorative work on the hangars and decorative work on the station. After that, I think I'm going to have to say the base would be complete. I know there are other things I could add, like gas storage and a bunch of little rooms around the place. However, I have a really good reason for not doing that, and that is the game is not liking this save lately. There was a period of time where it had really started to perform poorly and had started to crash to desktop on load about 1/3 of the time, and I cleaned up all of the other grids that were on this save other than the ones that are really relevant to what's happening. However, that's only bought us a bit more time. We're now reaching that point again. It's crashing on load every now and then. So I'm going to need to curb my little enthusiasm about building all sorts of crazy stuff and try and make this place feel complete, so that we can say this is actually a fully done base, even if it is missing some features that might have been nice to add. So while that sounds a bit sad, there is the happy thing of the base should get complete. I really don't want to let this save get to the point where it's crashing so much that I have to end the series without finishing things off. I want to finish it all off. I want to make it feel done, feel like what I'd imagine it would always be. And to be honest, it's already more than I had imagined it would be when I started this place out. This thing has grown beyond all the wildest dreams that I had for it right at the start. I had intended on something a lot smaller, and it has just grown and grown and grown. So we will hopefully over the coming weeks get this thing to the point of being complete. So there's all that and plenty more to come, and I will see you then.